Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Spooks Files. My name is CMSpooks, and I'm here with Mr. Hater. And today we're going to be talking about one of the first popular gaming creepypastas, known as Pokémon Black. Now, I understand, Mr. Hater, that you have a bit of a history with the Pokemon franchise.
This is true, very true. I have played most of the games. I own quite a few of them. I've got currently like 3 that I'm about to start playing through that I need to finish. And I've played through Fire Red and Black 2 about 20 times. And of course watched the anime because I'm a weeb. And very cultured man, if you would, when it comes to the subject, I feel.
That's good, because we're probably going to need it here, because I have a very surface level knowledge of Pokemon. So this will be interesting. Now, I definitely have read this creepypasta before. However, I don't remember much about it. And so I'm pretty curious to see what you're going to think about it. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. But before we do, I want to go ahead and just ask if you have any recognition of this or any idea what this might be.
So I remember from, eons ago, the Pokemon Lavender Town, like fever dream, whatever crap. That was, years ago that came out, was a big deal or whatever. So I know that somewhat. And I have heard of Pokemon Black, and I may know some of what this is about, but I don't, like I said, it was 8 years ago. So my knowledge of this may come back to me as we're going through it. This might be the one case where I actually know something about our topic. I might not. We'll find out in a minute.
So, actually, that reminded me, if you go ahead and look at the doc, I added another link, and I went ahead and checked to see how short this is. We're going to actually go ahead with that in mind and look at the Lavender Town Syndrome, the original creepypasta, first.
Well, there you go.
I do not have a date on this. I'm going to assume it's after 2010 from what I've seen of the story, so it should be around the time, around the same time actually as Pokemon Black. And so there is some slight overlap from what I know, but we'll go ahead and get into reading the Lavender Town Syndrome, and we'll see, because I feel like most of what you're talking about probably came from this. So,
well, let's find out.
The Lavender Town Syndrome, also known as Lavender Town Tone or Lavender Town Suicides, was a peak in suicides and illness of children between the ages of 7 to 12 shortly after the release of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan, back in February 27th, 1996. Rumors say these suicides and illness only occurred after the children playing the game reached Lavender Town, whose theme music had extremely high frequencies that studies showed that only children and young teens can hear since their ears are more sensitive. Due to the Lavender Tone, at least 200 children supposedly committed suicide, and many more developed illnesses and afflictions. The children who committed suicide usually did so by hanging or jumping from heights. Those are 2 popular ways to commit suicide. Those who did not act irrationally complained of several headaches after listening to Lavender Town's theme. Although Lavender Town now sounds differently depending on the game, this mass hysteria was caused by the first Pokemon game released. After the Lavender Town incident, the programmers had fixed Lavender Town's theme music to be at a lower frequency, and since children were no longer affected by it. Okay, so I'm not trying to be critical of some of the sentence structure is kind of breaking down here. One video appeared in 2010 using... I'm trying not to laugh here. It's serious. One video appeared in 2010 using quote, special software end quote, to analyze the audio of Lavender Town's music. When played, the software created images of the unknown near the end of the audio. This raised a controversy since the unknown didn't appear until Generation 2 games, Silver, Gold, and Crystal. The unknown translate to... Well, it wouldn't translate, it's actually spelling it. If the unknown are like the letter Pokemons, right?
Yes.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, it wouldn't translate, it would say, spelled out, like pretty clearly in them.
Yeah.
Leave now.
I guess you would... I guess in theory, I guess you could say translate as in like they were taking the letters and then forming.
Yeah, I guess, but it was like, okay,
sure.
the unknown are shaped to say leave no. That's whatever. This is also...
Calm down.
This is also the said beta version of Lavender. So, okay. Again, I'm not... I know we shouldn't... I have like one more sentence to read, but I can't get over the fact, this fact right here, that it's like... This is also... I assume so, but also like... The beta version being the version that they took out after the kids killed themselves or whatever. But, like, this is structured in a way. Why would it be on its own sentence, own paragraph? Like, it kind of seems redundant. I don't... I'm breaking down right now even trying to explain what's going with this. But I think you see, like, this should be lumped. This should have either been said earlier or...
Look, it was written by like a 4-year-old like 30 years ago. Leave him be. Okay?
Yeah.
You know, he's just a child.
Okay, so pretty much what should have happened, to sum it up, is that they should have said they changed the tones and stuff after they had also mentioned this, probably. And then, you know, okay, here's what they did to fix it. Whatever. It is said that the beta version of Pocket Monsters was released to some kids to test the games. This is the video of the beta version of Lavender Town. We're not gonna watch the video. At the time, me being younger, I didn't, and I was probably not actually looking at this in 2010. It was probably closer to 2012, 2013. However, I remember seeing this and thinking, like, it was, we knew it wasn't real, but it was well written enough, or at least I thought so, that it seemed like it's written. This is what a lot of old creepypasta did, is they would write themselves as if it was real, and you just have an anonymous author, and so it would be effective in convincing some people that it was real, which I think if we look at every other story we have covered so far has pretty much followed that trend. Do you have any thoughts on the Lavender Town syndrome?
So it, you know, like I said, we're trying to, what was it, 2010 roughly, kind of when this came out, we're guessing, let's say at the latest. It's, you can see, you know, from like, let's say 2006, 2008, you're online, you're, you know, 7 years old, you're playing Pokemon, you're looking up stuff about Pokemon, you find this. You could see how this would be believed. Like I can this one seems more logical than like a lot of the stuff we go over, because, you know, music does have an effect on our brains. We know that, you know, horror, you know, uses certain tones and stuff like that usually and stuff. So I could definitely see how this would have, like, quote unquote, been believable. Just now you look back and you're like, yeah, that would have been all over the news. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
That would have been like, that would have been a national incident type thing, you know, where people would have been like, canceled. Pokemon would not be around anymore. So, like, it just wouldn't.
The best counter argument I can think of that I know someone will say is that Japan's suicide rate is so high that it would be like a blip. But, like, this was children between 7 and 12. And also, like, okay, I get the realism. Like, it's more realistic than some of them that's saying, like, some sort of ghost is coming out or whatever. It's not even fully saying that it's supernatural. Well, it wasn't until it had the spelled out leave now. We can just agree that probably everything after, like, the last 3 sentences were all crap. Or not sentences, but, like, the unknown in the audio file is so stupid. I mean, I guess it might be sort of creepy, but, like, dude, if I looked at that, I'd be like, I don't know, I feel like I would probably laugh if I went through the audio file and I saw it shaped in unknowns saying leave now is all it can say, That's the scary drop? Leave now.
No, a scary drop is deuces. Get on out of here, homie. You know, like, what?
So Lavender Town Syndrome. Let me think of what we've read so far.
I would say the story
probably the
itself,
worst.
like in a whole. Okay, rephrase it. The idea behind the story itself, I think, is actually pretty good as far as like the tone. You know, making people. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a cool especially for what, you know. I mean, this is what 3-4 paragraphs, whatever.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, a little bit more than that, but you know, not that much written to it. It's like, okay, cool. It's very nostalgic to me because, like I said, I remember this one kind of back in the day when I was like 15, 16.
It certainly has a legacy and certainly spawned a lot of interesting like Pokemon creepypasta stuff.
Yeah,
and
but like you said, once you get to the point where it's like you get to the unknowns, it's like, wait, what? Like if they just dropped it right at the suicide pact part type thing, you'd been like, oh, okay.
Yeah, less is more.
And then they just went too far with it. Less is more.
I mean, yeah,
especially in Lavender Town.
With these brief creepypasta stories, these older ones, one of them that obviously we are probably not releasing, but the Mariana Mortigard Glesglov. And, like, that one also had the same thing. I felt like the video and then the first, like, introduction to it, and like, oh, this video showed up, this is interesting, like, was good. And then we get to the point where they're mailing eyeballs to YouTube, and it's like, okay, if you had stopped, like, a paragraph or two earlier, you'd have something that would stick in my mind and be creepy. But you jumped the shark.
Had you just ended a little bit sooner.
So that's Lavender Town, and like I said, I do believe there's definitely a impact that was left by this, and I remember learning to play Lavender Town theme on my tuba to like mess with other kids. So here's what I will say: despite most people knowing it wasn't real, I have to give it points for like in my 6th, 7th grade classes. Mainly 6th grade, but I definitely remember knowing some people who were creeped out by it, like to the point where like if you started singing it, like they hated it. And so there were people who believed it to an extent. Again, 6th graders, but you know,
it seemed to have worked.
You could probably say that about a lot of other things. There were people who like wouldn't even like let you mention Slender Man or something. They'd get freaked out. So who knows? But we looked at Lavender Town. So now, let's look at Pokémon Black, which I believe probably came out before it. I don't know, November 12th, 2010. It might have came out after. They came out so close together, like in the same year, from what I can gather, that they're kind of tied together. Pokémon Black, I think, definitely has some like ties to Lavender Town as a location. However, from my memory, it's a more well-written story.
It does seem to. It came out around 2010. Lavender Town Syndrome is what it's saying.
So I'm guessing Lavender Town probably came out a bit before, considering it says this Pokemon Black was at least posted to creepypasta.com at this time, November 12th, 2010. But who knows? Maybe the actual story came out earlier. But I think we're going to go ahead and get into this. I like I said, I have a bit higher expectations here, so hopefully it doesn't ruin that.
Disappoint.
So, I stumbled on this unsettling story of an obscure Pokemon bootleg / art hack that I thought might be neat to share on here. I think this originated from 4chan, so I have no idea if this hack actually exists. It probably doesn't, but it's still a great concept / tale. And I don't mean to stop so early in this, but this is something I do like that they did a lot more back then. But it almost lends credibility in a weird way for like anonymous stories that this person's like, I just heard this story, and shares it. Mm-hmm. Which is like, even since Campfire Tales is how these stories come about, and it brings it where like it almost makes it seem more mythical to the point where like you can't actually trace the origin. Now, let's be clear, whoever wrote they wrote this whole thing, obviously, is one author. But, unless, maybe another author wrote the rest of this, But based on how it's written, this person is writing it from memory. He said, I stumbled across it, and he doesn't know where he got it from. So I'm assuming this person's writing it from memory, which means it's, either way. Something interesting to note. Another trend we've seen a bit with the, like the late stories, kind of like all those little things being research tales, if you will. But I'm going to go ahead and keep going. I'm what you could call a collector of bootleg Pokemon games. Pokemon Diamond and Jade, Chaos Black, etc. It's amazing the frequency with which you can get them at pawn shops, Goodwill, flea markets, and such. Last note, obviously this creepypasta came out before Pokemon Black and White. I don't know about the other ones, but if there's anything else that's similar, we can assume, like, okay, this probably came out before those games were released.
By the way, Pokemon Jade is an actual, like, knockoff game that was made. Like, these are actual ones.
I figured these were, like, actual, like, this, again, building into realism, mentioning that these are bootlegs, so it's very possible that some weird bootleg called Pokemon Black could have some weird things on it. So already we're, like, getting into the point where this is much more well-written and less... Lavender Town Syndrome is very easily disproven with a search. This is a bit different. But I'm going to stop delaying. They're generally fun, even if they are unplayable, which they often are. The mistranslations and poor quality make them unintentionally humorous. I've been able to find most of the ones that I've played online, but there's one that I haven't seen any mention of. I bought it at a flea market about 5 years ago. Here's a picture of the cartridge in case anyone wants to recognize it. Are you seeing the image of the cartridge?
I am not, but the picture of it, I'm going to look it up. I feel like I have seen it before.
Go ahead, if you can, search Pokemon Black cartridge creepypasta. It's not like anything... Oh, yeah, okay.
It should be just like, it's just like a black version of like a normal, it's just literally, it just says Pokemon and it's black.
I know that's subtle. I actually like that a lot, because like it's like you would expect something like dramatic on there, just having, and I added it to the doc but like just plain black actually makes it seem more ominous.
Yeah, you're just kind of like,
Alright. Here's a picture of the cartridge, in case anyone recognizes it. It's just the blank black cartridge. It's like, you recognize this cartridge?
Have you seen this before?
Unfortunately, when I moved 2 years ago, I lost the game, so I can't provide you with screen caps. Sorry. A likely story.
Mm-hmm.
The game started with the familiar Nidorino and Gengar intro of Red and Blue version. However, the press start screen had been altered. Red was there, but the Pokemon did not cycle through. It also said Black version under the Pokemon logo. I'm guessing you're probably able to envision what's going on a bit more than I am. I'm not as familiar.
Yes, I'm literally seeing what's happening.
That's good. I kind of figured this one would resonate a little more with you just because it will be a bit more personal, which I'll get into after why I think makes these creepypastas have some sort of value. But upon selecting new game, the game started the Professor Oak speech, but it quickly became evident that the game was essentially Pokemon Red version. After selecting your starter, if you looked at your Pokemon, you had, in addition to Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, another Pokemon, Ghost. The Pokemon was level 1. It had the sprite of the ghosts that are encountered in Lavender Tower before obtaining the Slift Scope. It had one attack, Curse. I know that there is a real move named Curse, but the attack did not exist in Generation 1, so it appears it was hacked in. Ghost. So, I think that is true. Those ghosts are actually like, that sprite is actually like a ghost that appear in a certain part of the game.
Yeah. When you go to it's in Lavender Town, you go to the tower or whatever, and if you don't have a certain like device, I forget what it's called, some like eyeglass thing or whatever, you find this ghost. It turns out to be like a Marowak or whatever. But anyways, if you don't have the glass, it's just a ghost, and you can't catch it, you can't fight it. It just scares you, and you end up running from the fight. And so it is an actual thing. Yeah, you're just like, oh, and you just leave.
That's again, this is another thing that's interesting about this one to me is like, okay, they didn't make anything super original. They took something that was barely in it and basically just like, okay, you can play as, or you can have.
And which the ghost in like that whole in Lavender Town has always been like where all the fan theories have come through. Like it's always been like, what about this? Could it be this? You know, it's a very popular deal. So gotcha. It's anything from that everybody's like, yeah, no, that could be possible.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I actually didn't know that. All right, let's go ahead. Defending Pokemon were unable to attack Ghost. It would only say they were too scared to move. Which is kind of funny because what you're saying is whenever you would try to fight the Ghost, it would make you run away, which is a bit different than too scared to move, but still. When the move Curse was used in battle, the screen would cut to black. The cry of the defending Pokemon would be heard, but it was distorted.
Oh my god.
Played at a much lower pitch than normal. Okay. I didn't think it was funny until you started laughing, and now I'm imagining it. I think the thing I've noticed with you is sometimes you're laughing, but it's also like a laugh of like shock.
It's like a disturbing. Yeah, like, I wasn't ready for that.
I noticed.
So I'm just there like do.
I noticed that in the Rake episode, like there was a part you started chuckling, but then when you start saying, you'll say like, "Oh my gosh!" Like you're like, you're like caught off guard, and it comes out as laughter, which is very.
I laugh when I'm nervous.
I guess
I'm
that's common. I guess what is interesting to me is that I didn't really know that about you until recently.
Until we started doing this. You're just like, this dude's weird.
I mean, it's natural. I kind of do the same thing sometimes, but... okay, the cry of the defending Pokemon would be heard, but it was distorted. Played at a much lower pitch than normal. The battle screen would then reappear, and the defending Pokemon would be gone. If used in a battle against a trainer, when the Pokeballs representing their Pokemon would appear in the corner, they would have one fewer Pokeball. Okay, so I was about to say this exact sentence that is next in the that is next in the story. The implication was that the Pokemon died.
I was like, it says, we're saying that they just murdered him, or
what's even
ignore that?
Yeah, so that's what is interesting is like. In most games, like, you kill the enemies, like, that's not so common. But for some reason, because of how Pokemon is set up, that actually is kind of creepy. It's like, oh, you straight up just killed him. Okay.
It's like, oh, he's dead.
But what's even stranger is that after defeating a trainer and seeing Red receive $200 for winning, the battle commands would appear again. If you selected Run, the battle would end as it normally does. You could also select Curse. If you did, upon returning to the overworld, the trainer's sprite would be gone. After leaving and re-entering the area, the spot where the trainer had been would be replaced with a tombstone, like the ones at Lavender Tower. So you can straight up just like, you know what? I killed all your Pokemon, and then you kill him too. And then someone takes the time in the meantime, as you walk off screen and walk back into that map, someone's built him a little tombstone and buried him on the spot.
They're just like, no, Ted, why? Ted was my brother.
This is another thing. It's like, it sounds a little silly, but I can definitely imagine like you playing this, even if you knew it was hacked and like being a little freaked out. You're like, oh, which is.
Oh, I'm just murdering everybody. Okay, that's what we're doing.
Oh, and what I like about this so far is that like, that's like kind of gives you a bit of the creeps, but also like they're not having to rely on stuff like making it like a gory death or whatever. It's just the implication that like.
Yeah, it's just like it's like kind of a creepy implication that you're in a Pokemon game, you're murdering.
Yeah, and it almost makes it believable in the way that they're not saying death or anything. So like, it's almost like, well, is it trying to like not say the word death for kids or what's?
Yeah.
But
Like, what are we doing?
the move Curse was not usable in all instances. It would fail against ghost Pokemon. It would also fail if it was used against trainers that you would have to face again, such as your rival or Giovanni. It was usable in your final battle against him, however. I figured this was the gimmick of the game, allowing you to use the previously uncapturable ghosts, and because Curse made the game so easy, I essentially used it throughout the whole adventure. I know that, okay, it's a game, but I'm just thinking, okay, he's just like, oh, well, this is easy. You just start killing everyone. The game
Just murdered everybody. Oh, this game is really easy.
Now, what I'd be interested in is if he would share his stats on how many of the trainers he killed.
I'm assuming all of them if he used Curse on all the ones like you said.
Yeah, but so he said you don't have to kill the
everybody.
trainer. Like you can kill the Pokemon and leave. But like, did he go the extra step to kill every trainer too? Like he went genocide on him?
Was he like, you're done?
I could just leave. And then you're just like, the guy's like, well, you already killed all my Pokemon, please. He's like, okay. Just kidding, Curse.
He said, you're done.
The game changed quite a bit after defeating the Elite Four. After viewing the Hall of Fame, which consisted of ghosts and a couple of other very underleveled Pokemon, the screen cut to black. A box appeared with the words, "Many years later." Isn't it like the Elite Four the end of the game? Or is...
Yeah, typically. I mean, there's usually after story, but that's basically like the game. You
Okay.
know? So yes, that would be what you would define as the end of the game.
Gotcha. It then cut to Lavender Tower. An old man was standing, looking at tombstones. You then realize this man was your character. So I'm guessing in the original one, it cut to Red as an old man, looking at the tombstones of everyone in town that he murdered.
No, I mean sometimes, but not all the time.
Listen, if you can't be the very best, get rid of everyone else.
You can't beat them, kill them.
Yep. That's what I always say.
Yep.
The man moved at only half of your normal
Why do you
walking
say
speed, because he's old. You no longer had any Pokemon with you, not even ghosts, who up to this point had been impossible to remove from your party through depositing in the PC. The overworld was entirely empty. I feel like they should have, very minor critique, probably should have said the not depositing thing earlier, so this would have hit harder when it's like, oh, he's not in my inventory. Either way.
Yeah, that'd be true. Yeah.
Very minor, though, compared to, like, so far this has been pretty decent. There were no people at all. There were still the tombstones of the trainers that you used Cursed on, however. You could go pretty much anywhere in the overworld at this point, though your movement was limited by the fact that you had no Pokemon to use HMs. And
ooh, interesting.
regardless of where you went, the music of Lavender Town continued on an infinite loop. There we go. That's I knew there was some connection here. Obviously the ghost coming from Lavender Town as well, but after wandering for a while, I found that if you go through Diglett's cave, one of the cuttable bushes that normally blocks the path on the other side is no longer there, allowing you to advance and return to Pallet Town. Upon entering your house and going to the exact tile where you start the game, the screen would cut to black. Then a sprite of a Caterpie appeared. It was replaced by a Weedle and then a Pidgey. I soon realized as the Pokemon progressed from Rattata to Blastoise that these were all of the Pokemon that I used Curse on. So it's just like, okay, check this out. And it just shows you your whole Death Note list. It's like, remember him? You remember him?
Oh, what about this guy? Him? No? Okay.
No, I don't. I don't know what you're talking about.
No. He's like, no.
He's like, oh, wait. Yeah, I know that one.
Oh, wait, him? Yeah, no, I don't remember him.
So after the end of my rival's team, a youngster appeared, and then a bug catcher. Those were the trainers I had cursed. So he killed all the trainers. Throughout the sequence, the Lavender Town music was playing, but it was slowly decreasing in pitch. By the time your rival appeared on screen, it was a little more than a demonic rumble. I'm actually just like slightly worried about the psyche of the protagonist, considering, like, the person writing the story, considering he made it clear you don't have to kill the trainers with Curse. You could, like, you technically don't have to kill anyone, but, like, you could use Curse on their Pokemon, kill their Pokemon, and you'd win the duel, and then you could leave. But
he wanted more.
No, I'm not letting you rebuild. Which, by the way, they're already scared. They're done Pokemon hunting at this point. Like, you've already ruined their lives. I'm trying to think of, like, this story if it was made in the anime, like in the tone of the Pokemon anime, but then, like,
oh gosh. Rated R Pokemon series we didn't know we needed.
Pikachu's too scared to attack, and Ash is like, "Come on, Pikachu!" And then his opponent's like, "Curse!" And then Pikachu just dies, and that's the end of the anime.
Yeah, and Ash is like, "Hey Pikachu, hey Pikachu, get up!"
Crying on him won't work this time. He's gone. He just despawns. Okay.
Crying on him won't work.
That was the only other circumstance I remembered that Pikachu basically died. So, another cut to black. A few moments later, the battle screen suddenly appeared. Your trainer sprite was now that of an old man, the same one as the one who teaches you how to catch Pokemon in Viridian City. Ghost appeared on the other side, along with the words, "Ghost wants to fight." You couldn't use items, and you had no Pokemon. If you tried to run, you couldn't escape. The only option was fight. I'm sure this would go well. Using fight would immediately cause you to use struggle, which didn't affect Ghost, but did chip off a bit of your own HP. When it was Ghost's turn to attack, it would simply say ... So it's like refusing to kill you, and you're hurting yourself by struggling. Eventually, when your HP reached a critical point, Ghost would finally use Curse. The screen cut to black a final time. Regardless of the buttons you pressed, you were permanently stuck in this black screen. At this point, the only thing you could do was turn the Game Boy off. When you played again, New Game was the only option. The game had erased the file. I played through this hacked game many times, and every time the game ended with this sequence. Several times I didn't use Ghost at all, though he was impossible to remove from the party. In these cases, it did not show any Pokemon or trainers and simply cut to the climatic battle with Ghost. So, even if you don't do all these bad things, Ghost is like, "Okay, I'm gonna kill you now.
Come here, buddy. Come here, buddy."
I'm not sure what the motives were behind the creator of this hack. It wasn't widely distributed, so it was presumably not for monetary gain. It was very well done for a bootleg. It seems he was trying to convey a message, though it seems I am the sole receiver of this message. I'm not entirely sure what it was. The inevitability of death? The pointlessness of it? Perhaps he was simply trying to morbidly inject death and darkness into a children's game. Regardless, this children's game has made me think. It has made me cry. I mean, fair.
Yeah.
Top comment is, "I know it's 10 years later, but I still want to buy this game." I don't think you do. I don't think you got the story. Alright, so that's Pokemon Black. Go ahead and whatever thoughts you have.
I feel like it may, and maybe I'm wrong. Our audience will be like, "No, you're stupid," and that's fine. I feel like there have been people who have made this game described off of how this is, the story or whatever. You can find it online.
Probably wouldn't be that hard
on the internet. You have to play it on the internet. Yeah. But from my understanding, I think it has existed. I don't know if it still does. I might be wrong. It may
and we're
not,
gonna do a let's play of it.
From my understanding, I thought it did. Next week on.
As if we don't know exactly what's gonna happen. I guess it would just be like playing Pokemon Red, but with a little extra lore.
Yeah, just with more murder. Because I'm killing everybody.
I'm actually kind of... We'll talk about it later, but I'm actually kind of considering if I can find an easy version of that. That would actually be kind of fun.
You say we'll talk later. I'm not talking to you.
All right.
You're not.
Well, I use Curse.
Okay,
so overall, what did you think of the story? Because obviously, I think it's pretty clear it's better written than the other one.
Well, what's weird about like this one, and like obviously it is, like don't get me wrong, but like it's weird to think of this like as like a creepypasta or like a horror story, because where it is creepy, it's like it's not like, I mean obviously it's inside of a video game, number one, and nothing happened to the person playing the video game psychologically. Maybe I'm talking about like, you know, the ghost didn't come out of the game and then like, you know, possess him or anything. It's like he just basically played like, you know, a horror game, and it's just like, yeah, that was weird, you know. And it's just like, that's what I found, guys. What do you think? And everybody's like, what?
So I think,
but the real question is like, how did this story come about? Did somebody just like make it up? So I have heard rumors, and obviously there are rumors that somebody really did find that there really was like fake Pokemon Black cartridges, but like they didn't work. They didn't, like, you couldn't put them. You put them in your game, they didn't start up or anything.
you can definitely go buy one that's
from.
made to look like that on eBay, I'm sure.
Yeah, and so from my understanding, like at the time, that's kind of what happened. Is somebody made it and then sold it, and then it wasn't even an actual game. Obviously, it was just like a cartridge that they painted or whatever, or colored or something. So maybe that's where it came from, you know, or like I said, I mean, it could have just been, you know, same dude who like made Slender Man and stuff. He just came up with an idea and then wrote it. But it is interesting because this is one of like, so this was the one I was thinking of, kind of. I didn't remember all the details. But this was kind of what I remembered, that you like played as like a ghost type Pokemon or something and like murdered somebody. But I didn't remember you murdering everybody. So, and it may be a different one also. But so it was really cool to actually kind of get to finally see this for real.
Yeah, if there's not a fan game, which I don't see why there wouldn't, because of how many people that were interested in this and how, like, it would not be difficult compared to what people have done to make this.
Right.
There is at least, I've seen like recreations of the final battles and stuff. Like every sprite in here, there's no original sprites, so like this is super easy. And I definitely have seen like little bits of recreations of the battles on like YouTube before, I think. But I think to your point, nothing happens to the protagonist, and I think that that's probably why this works, because a lot of the gaming creepypastas that I don't like are ones where I think things can happen to the protagonist, but this one, like, there's nothing like you could say besides knowing that it was written to tell you that tell someone this was fake. But it also was strange and creepy enough to where it still left an impact, and there's still people who talk about it, you know, to this day as one of the...
I mean, obviously, we're talking about it, you know? Like,
yes, the most renowned...
right now, you know, and it's memorable.
The most renowned creepypasta podcast.
I mean, it has Mr. Hater on it. It is my podcast, so, clearly.
Well, I guess how I'll wrap it up as we continue to read the creepypastas is, where would you rank this among the stories we've read so far?
I'm definitely biased because I said earlier in the beginning of this, I do enjoy Pokemon. This has been my favorite just because I knew some of it, but I never had the full concrete story. So this one definitely is my favorite. And then, like, obviously I'm not a fan of horror in general. So this one is just so... In Lavender Town, I feel like it's kind of that way as well. It's sillier in some ways, but it's also a little bit darker with actual people dying. But, like, they're just, like, they were a big deal at their time. And I know the influence it kind of had on Pokemon community and fan-made games and stuff like that, and theories especially, for the time. So for me to look back at it, I'm like, yeah, that's actually pretty cool to see, go back and read and listen to it and be like, okay, I see why people acted this way, why people felt this way about it, and it's really cool to see that. I would probably put this was my favorite one. I don't know if I would say it's the best one. I think Pokemon Black story is definitely a good story overall. I felt like it was pretty well written too. Like you had mentioned it early on about like just like it sounded legit. Mm-hmm. Like it just sounded like a dude just telling the story about him playing the game. I also think it's a lot more believable than like say the Rake, where it's like, okay, so you have this like demon whatever, animal thing, and it's following people and it says its name and stuff. Like, you could see this actually have happening. Somebody had made this game and then sold it at a flea market to scare some little kids,
For sure.
So as believability, I think this is probably the most believable one, especially because we see crap like this kind of in our today. I'd probably say The Wreck is definitely a better horror story.
It definitely made more of an attempt to scare you, I suppose, than this one did.
Right, yeah. So I'd probably say that the Wide Mouth would be an equal to this one, as far as I'm concerned. I put those two about equal in second place for me. I for personal preference, I obviously like Black more.
How about Lavender Town?
Overall, like, enjoyability and written.
Does that one go straight to the bottom?
What are the ones we've gone over? We went over the Rake, Wide Mouth, and
so the ones we've gone over that have
more?
Made the podcast are
in the Dream. The Dream.
Ever Dream This Man, The Rake, Mr. Widemouth, and these two. We also, again, not on the podcast, but I'll go ahead and mention it. Mariana Mortegard Glesglov, and which I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. But then also we had looked over The Smiling Man. The
Smiling Man. So I would definitely say the Smiling Man's probably the worst one. I feel like, well, Glasgow's the worst, but I barely even count that one, honestly. Smiling Man's probably the worst one, and I would say Lavender's probably worse than it. I'm talking about what I've seen thus far, obviously. I'd say that Lavender is probably the worst. I think it's a great. I think if you just use the first 3 paragraphs, I think it's better than I think it's much better. And it's like oh, okay, it's better than Smiling Man, better than Glasgow. It's probably close to what's it called? You just said it a second ago. Ever Dream This Man. I'm like, just especially for the size of it, I think that's where it would fit. But because of like the second half of it, it's just like garbage.
Yeah, I think that author should have cut it off. However, I think that other authors could make something more interesting with it long term, or could have written. And I'm sure there are those. I've heard other Lavender Town stories, but that's the original, and none of the other ones I've heard have been impactful enough. So I'm mostly in agreement with how you're sort of ranking these things. Pokémon Black is definitely one of the most... I think Lavender is as well, but Pokémon Black, I think, kind of popularized gaming creepypastas, and that led to things like Ben Drowned and such.
And like, obviously, as somebody who never watched creepypasta things or read anything on them, watched videos about them and stuff, Pokemon Black and Lavender Town reached me. You know what I mean? Like, and like,
yeah, this is the first one that you actually knew details about.
Yeah, so I feel like that shows the influence they had as far as for the genre on a whole.
Well, with that being said, there are other Pokemon creepypastas. So if that's something you're interested in, or other people are, we might come back to this. But currently we are trying to get like a good spread of different sorts of creepypastas. But for now, I think it's time we go ahead and check out. So with that being said, I don't have an outro for this one.
Well, that's weird. I do have one question. Oh, wow. I don't know why that caught me so off guard. You're just like, I already stopped mine. I wasn't ready for you to do that.